following podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Remember, the first rule of gambling responsibly is to bet with your head and not over it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cousin Vito's Casino Podcast proudly presents your guide to enjoying gambling. And now, direct from the bar, your cousin and mine, Cousin Vito!
Whoa, 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 whoa! Welcome, everybody, to Cousin Vito's Casino Podcast, your guide to enjoying gambling. I'm your host, Cousin Vito, and together, we're going to make luck happen at the casino. Thank you for checking out another special quarantine episode, and this week I have a very, very special co-host, the man who has his finger on the pulse of New England gambling. The doctor is in, Robin. Thank you for coming back on the show.
I'm here, I'm ready, and I'm dying to go.
Oh, Robin, I'm very excited today. It's a Sunday afternoon, Selection Sunday. You may hear me in the background here clicking. I'm actually in a free Poker Stars home game tournament. Well, you can bet on that. They got over 200 people in here registered, I think. So I'm biting my nails. Oh God, we're gonna play this right now. I'm Jack 10 offsuit. Jack comes on the flop. I raised, just got re-raised. I got to hang here. Now I'm going to pussyfoot around. All right, but Robin, we got some big New England gambling news while I lose this hand. Dice are back in Massachusetts here.
Yeah, yep. And they've got some pretty specific protocols, like the dice have to be cleaned between shooters. And it's going to finally give, I think, Massachusetts that little kick they need, though.
Oh, yeah, because that's something that'll keep me from making the trip up there is the no dice. Now, if obviously I'm driving by, I'll go play, I'll go have a cocktail or whatever. But no dice, that's a big deal breaker travel-wise, especially if, you say you want to go to win Boston Harbor or something really exciting. That's a real stinker to not be able to play some craps.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, it's supposed to give them about 200 jobs, add 200 jobs. They're putting 4 people on a blackjack table, too, which is, I don't know, that's kind of a little close to me, but for now. But, hey, we'll see what happens.
Well, they're doing the 4. They got the plexiglass up, right? You're still in, the hockey mode there.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be, according to the MGC, it's got 5 feet 11 inches is what that has to be. Massachusetts is so specific and everything that they tend to micromanage. So, yep.
I can see that. Well, we got a big show today, Robin. We're going to get into a little bit of the New England gambling update. We have a great guest. We have Tyler Holzhammer, the Director of Operations from Sports Card Investor. And, Robin, you may have been listening to my shows over the break here. I've been dabbling in sports cards. And I know, I'm guilty here. This isn't a totally casino-related interview. But if you know anything about the way the sports cards industry going, this is a total gamble buying sports cards. Because you're talking people are paying thousands of dollars for pieces of cardboard, Robin. I don't know if you have any sports card background in you.
Well, I couldn't believe that you would tell what you were telling me about how much it costs to be able to buy an entire collection. And when I was growing up in the 1800s, we would buy a pack of gum and get 5 cards. Hope we get something different, and whatever wasn't different went in the spokes of our bicycle. And I had over 300 baseball cards that I just gave away, and it was just before this whole thing with baseball cards and card collectors started. I gave away a good condition Warren Spahn Braves card and Louis Aparicio rookie card, and I had some great cards like Ted Williams card. And, man, I wish I would have kept them. I had no idea. At the time, it was no big deal.
And now you'd be sick probably if you downloaded the Sports Card Investor. But that's the tough part is you never know, because grading, there's so many different variables in what makes a card great. And that's what we're going to learn in this interview, because I'm telling you, I was doing these box breaks. Robin, now you buy the cards, they got pieces of jersey autograph, they got pieces of the football, they got all sorts of stuff. I was actually looking at, they have political sports cards. And there's a set that you can get a strand of George Washington's hair on the card.
Get out of here.
I swear, you got to look it up. It's real. You could buy into the breaks, and you could win a strand of George Washington's hair, and you could frame it and have it on your wall. How cool is that?
Oh man, well things have really changed. I can tell you. I mean, do they still have gum?
I don't know if they put the gum in there. I know now when the guys rip the old packs, the gum, it ruins the card, so no one likes the gum now. The gum, it's all too old school. But, they don't really sell them to kids anymore. They sell them to middle-aged guys like me that have way too much expendable income because we're trapped in the house at the moment, I think.
Yeah. Wow. Things have certainly changed in that area. Holy cow.
But I'm not going to be trapped in the house much longer, Robin. I got my one-shot J&J, boom, in the arm. I'm feeling great. We did it almost a week ago, so I'm heading back to the casino. And after our interview with Tyler Holzhammer from the Sports Card Investor, we're going to talk about my casino return, and Cousin Mikey's going to be returning with me one of these days. We might have a meetup in May, Robin. We're working on it, formative stages.
Excellent. Can't wait to see you, Mikey. Mikey, if you're listening out there, buddy, hope to see you soon.
Oh, he is doing great. He just came by, did my taxes. And actually, Robin, I'm up to 4,200 chips in this You Can Bet on That poker tournament on the side here. Feeling pretty good.
Excellent. Have you bounced anybody out yet?
No, I'm too chicken for that. I did actually win a nice hand. I hit the nut flush just a minute ago. I had ace-5 suited, and it ended up getting my flush on the river. Sorry, Kenster. He was the one who was the victim of that suck out there. But Robin, New England gambling. So we got the dice open. Foxwoods is starting to have shows. Mohegan's having shows. I mean, on your vibe here, we're getting closer to normal. We might be able to ring in the new year with a casino party this year.
I really am pretty hopeful about the summer being pretty close to normal. Things are really starting to move. Even Massachusetts is easing up. The casinos in Maine are starting to reopen some of their food outlets. Wahlburger is ready to open in the springtime at MGM Springfield. Things are starting to happen now, and more people get vaccinated. Less people are more apt to stay away from the casino. I think I see good things, coming by the summer. And
so you got your finger on the pulse of it all, but we were talking yesterday. You had to go pick something up, right? We were going to record yesterday morning, but Robin, you're busy. You're taking a load of all these casino gifts they're giving out these days.
Well, it's tough, but I try to visit every single one of these casinos. Like I'm really missing out my main trip.
Really punishing yourself, I see. All these casino trips I'm jealous of.
It's for the good of the podcast. It's for the good of the website. So, I went to Twin River yesterday because we had a free cruise offer, and they did something a little bit different than the cruise offer that I got and went and picked up at Foxwoods 3 weeks ago. I don't know when I'm going to be cruising. I really don't. But
but you got the offers all lined up. You could go on a trip around the world now.
I know they're all lined up, man. So Twin River had you go swipe, and they're going to send you all the information, which is kind of like a touchless version of getting the information. Not bad, but it was a crazy day at Twin River. You know me, I like to go early in the morning, and I was there at 8:30, 9 o'clock. I was out by 11, and the line was starting to form. My son, Miguel, who is on one of our Anytime Gambling buds, he said the line was out the door and circling around just to get in, to get past so that you could swipe. It was just a crazy place.
Wow, I'm sure the cruise companies are like, oh my God, there are people who want to cruise. All the gamblers who want the free cruises are going to run out.
You bet. And it doesn't really matter when the cruises are going to start. People just feel like, get me out of the house. That's all.
And how did that vary from Foxwoods? Now, Foxwoods, you got in line, you had to give your card and get the information and the vouchers in person?
Yeah. They were giving them out in front of the Fox Theater. But it was, protocol, to the max. It was really handled well. I think I was in a line of moving very quickly for, maybe 5-10 minutes the most. It was very, very well done there, too.
Wow, good news to hear. And, I'm itching. Now that I got my Johnson & Johnson ramen, I'm telling you, the first thing I did after I got the shot, I went on all my casino websites to look at the room rates. Because I'm telling you, once this thing kicks in, once these antibodies grow, I am heading out down to Foxwoods. I already got the trip booked, and we're going to talk about that after the interview. Maybe, you swing down, we play a little VP, we could play some Pai Gow. I mean, I'm trying to work the quadruple points day, but, it's going to be hard to. I'm going 2 nights. We'll get into it after the interview. We'll talk about that trip and possibly a May meetup with cousin Mikey. We'll see. I hear Mikey, he's going to be flying solo. Might just be the boys' trip to the casino.
Oh, excellent.
We'll see. Sometimes the wives are good too. It helps lick the wounds in the room after a bad night instead of laying there with my arms folded weeping.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what, Robin? We're going to jump into this interview with Tyler Holzhammer, the director of operations at Sports Card Investor. And, if you're into sports cards are kind of in the gambling world a little bit. So I figured, quarantine's ending. This has been one of my little wastes of money, we'll call it, during the quarantine. So I thought it'd be great to, catch up on the sports card world. And hey, I'm sure there's some poker players and gamblers with sports cards in their investment portfolio. So this will be good knowledge for all of us wing and a prayer type of guys.
Yeah, it sounds great. Why don't we get started?
Let's do it. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome in Tyler the Hammer Holzhammer from Sports Card Investor. All right. I am here with a very special guest this week on the show. We have the Director of Operations from Sports Card Investor, Tyler the Hammer Holzhammer. Tyler, it's great to have you on Cousin Vito's Casino podcast.
Vito, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
And I want to thank you for responding to my emails, because you must have opened your email and said, what's this casino Cousin Vito guy who wants to interview me? What could this even be about? Is this some sort of spam message? But we got in touch and we are together here. And as a gambling enthusiast, I got to say, over this pandemic, the sports card box breaks and case breaks, they kind of become a little fun, I don't want to say supplement to my gambling fun, but it's a fun thing to do at home where sometimes you hit it big on these sports card breaks.
Oh yeah, man. It's definitely, something that's been around in the hobby for a few years now, but it has really taken storm over the past few years, or even over this last year with the pandemic, with people not being able to go out. It's one way, people can really have a lot of fun while gambling and also have some actual entertainment watching somebody opening up the box breaks. So it's definitely something fun and something I've partaken in the past as well.
And it's really unbelievable. As somebody who, I bought cards as a kid or whatever. I have all bent corners in a bag somewhere. But to look at the cards now, when I was going on eBay, at the beginning of the year and just, looking around, to see that there's boxes that retail for $2,000, like the National Treasures or the Flawless, they're like over $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. It's really unbelievable the market and just the industry in general in the year 2021 when, just a few years ago, a lot of people would say, oh yeah, the sports cards are dead, whatever, that was a hobby back then. But now it's like the resurgence is almost unbelievable.
Yeah, man, it's really something special. And, what I think it really comes down to is the fact that a lot of the mass audience and the mass public is starting to understand that, wow, you can actually make a lot of money in the sports card hobby. It was something that has always been a part of the sports card hobby, but I think it's just something that recently has come, into the massive audience where people are like, maybe people who typically maybe would put their money into stocks or even put their money into sports gambling are now choosing to put their money into sports cards, whether that's for investing or as a hobby or as a gambler, like you said yourself, somebody just getting into that National Treasures break to try to get that booklet or to try to get that RPA, which then can kickstart their return on investment and then just continue to keep the ball rolling. So it really is fascinating just to see how quickly this is really, picked up. And with the amount of, relevancy and in terms of pop culture it is now compared to what it used to be not even too long ago, maybe a year or two ago.
And what you're describing really rings true for me, because that's kind of how I got interested into pandemic. Is I bought into a case break of a high-end National Treasures. I just bought the Bears because I'm a Bears fan. What the heck? Maybe I'll get an autograph. And I ended up getting a high-end booklet. I don't know if it's a case hit or whatever they call it, but I got a David Montgomery autograph that had his laundry tag, all this stuff. And unbeknownst to me, that was a very coveted card, and I was able to sell that immediately, for a profit. I've sunk money back into it, obviously having a good time, but that there kind of got me interested, where I said, hey, you know what? You could look at it as a quick flip. You could look at it as, hey, if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. Or you look at it as a long-term hold.
Yeah, man. And that's honestly the beauty of it. The fact that once you get in, I mean, you could buy a particular team. You can even do something where, everybody pays a flat fee and, you randomly get picked teams. So there's just so many levels of excitement that go into it. And the fact that, like you said, you could pull that booklet that gives you 5, 10, X return on your investment from what you bought into the box, which from there could maybe you want it, instead of getting in one case break, now you can get in 2 case breaks, So to your point, it's really just caused a snowball effect with new people who have come into the hobby and have used that box breaking opportunity as an entertainment, outlet or a gambling, outlet. And then they've been able to almost start a bankroll from that and be able to buy and sell cards. And in general, people have been getting in breaks over the past year or two. They're probably doing well for the most part if they've still had those cards, just through the progression that we've seen over the past year or so with this hobby.
And I got to tell you, I don't have my calculator and all my accounting stuff here, but compared to some of the times I spent at the craps table, this sports card hobby really hasn't been so painful on my pocketbook as my casino hobby. So, but before we jump into what's going on today and all the prices and all the different stuff in the industry, I want to know a little bit about you, because for me, I'm a guy, I had sports cards as a kid, but right now you're sitting as a director of operations. So you must have been into sports cards your entire life. Now, did you get into it as a kid? Have you always been into it, or is it something that you kind of gotten back into?
It's something I started very young as a kid. My father was a sports card and memorabilia dealer. So, I remember 7, 8 years old, just starting out, my dad just handing me packs of cards to open. And from there, the floodgates just flew open. And, I couldn't get enough of opening the packs as a kid. And in hindsight, it's actually pretty funny to hear or to speak to, some of the old dealers at these trade shows I used to go to. And they would tell me, I remember when you used to not even be able to see over the table to see the cards that I had displayed. And to see where you're at now is something that's really cool. So that just gives you an idea, the sense of how long I've been into the hobby and come from a father who did it when he was growing up in the 60s and 70s. So that just gives you an idea of the secondhand background I have within this hobby, and I've been around it for a long time.
And interestingly enough, the fatherly figure aspect, a lot of gamblers I talk to have a very similar background, where you're kind of socialized to it as a young age. It becomes something fun. You look back on it warmly, like for you opening the packs. For me, maybe it was going down to Atlantic City on the boardwalk and watching, my grandfather play roulette at the table. But there is that, that personal connection to the hobby that really, it keeps it at the forefront of your heart and your mind through all these years.
Definitely. And I think that's another factor as to why you've seen the growth the way it has come. You have a lot of those collectors from the 80s and the 90s who now maybe have children, and now they're getting that nostalgic kick again to be like, wow, man, I remember how cool this was when I was a kid, going after guys like Ken Griffey Jr. and Jose Canseco and Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds. Collectors of that era are now old enough to where they can spend a little bit more money, and now they maybe have a child where they want to get them into it. An example would be, I remember I was chasing LeBron James's 2003 rookie. That's when, that was the time when I was, right as a kid collecting. And I just remember that was a young time in my life, but a very fun time, because that was a heck of a draft class in 2003. You had guys like LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, just to name a few. So that nostalgic aspect really is a powerful part, I think, of this resurgence of the sports card hobby.
Now, you've been doing this for years, so I'm assuming you must have a pretty interesting collection since you've been doing this for at least over a couple decades now. Are there any, cornerstones to your collection? Because, obviously, you watch YouTube, there's always people opening those old Fleer packs, trying to find the Jordans. But for your collection, are there any that you really look at and you say, yeah, this is one of my top 5 cards I've either bought or pulled or I have in my collection?
I would actually say that 2003 Topps LeBron James rookie card. So I have 3 of them, and 2 of them are PSA 9s, and that's a particular grade, which is a whole nother conversation in itself. But I would say those cards, I have a PSA 9 and a PSA 8. Now, those would be, I would say, the cornerstone, or the cards that I would say, you know what, these are going to just sit right where they are, and they're not going to go anywhere anytime soon, because a guy like LeBron James isn't necessarily going to be forgotten about when he retires from the game of basketball.
No, and what must be nice too is you could also hold them and say, you know what, I ripped a lot of packs for these freaking rookie cards, and it kind of is like the fuel that lit your collection fire there.
Exactly, that's exactly what it was. I remember as a kid trying to pull it and trying to go after it and chase it, and then coming back into it with a little bit more money in my pocket. It's like, you know what, that's the one I'm going after, because that's the one I wanted as a kid. I remember seeing it. I remember seeing Shaquille O'Neal on the cover of the box for 2003 Topps. I remember seeing that card in the glass case at the local card store I was at, knowing that I couldn't necessarily afford it at the time. But now that I'm a little bit older and have a little more money in my pocket, that was something where I was like, you know what, I'm going to get that nostalgic feeling back and get that card.
Now, in 2021, is there anything specifically you collect? Because the market's huge. Basketball cards are so expensive. Football cards are expensive. It's hard to even go to a store and get retail stuff for the most part, unless you have your own local card shop where they have a connection. But to walk into a Target or Walmart now, it's getting harder and harder to find the retail stuff. Is there anything specific you collect? Like, do you pick and choose now, or do you just rip what you can get your hands on?
I do usually pick and choose, and it is funny that you bring up the retail stuff, because yes, I have noticed that people are almost lining up at this point, just waiting for stuff to get dropped off. So that just gives you a sense of the growth in the hobby. But I do like to dabble in different things, and a lot of that is contingent on what the market is looking like. So I do like to collect, baseball, basketball, football, hockey. I even like to collect some things that are non-sports cards. I'm a huge Marvel fan. I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I love the comics. So I also like to collect Marvel cards as well, which is something that's a little bit different to the sports cards, but there is similarities with that market as well as the sports market. So those are just a few as well. And then you can get into some of the newer stuff like NBA Top Shot and things of that nature, which I've dabbled in as well.
We'll get into a little, and actually bringing up the Marvel cards, you're dusting off some memories in this wrinkled up brain of mine over here. And now, how is the market? Because I believe maybe a year ago when I was getting back into the cards, I looked them up and I was kind of surprised at the price of the old Marvel, the Fleer cards that they used to have, and even like the DC comic cards from maybe, it was probably at this point when I was in grade school, so we're talking the 90s, maybe probably the mid 90s. Those haven't seen the jump up in price yet. Are we seeing any movement on people trying to collect those old cards, the holograms or whatever the hell they used to have back then?
Actually, yes. Over the past month, we have seen an uptick in some of the Marvel cards. 1990 Marvel Universe is one particular set that's seeing a lot of higher prices than we've seen prior. Stan Lee has a particular card in there that people are coining like the Stan Lee rookie card. So you could find those probably for $5-10. Not too long ago. Now they're going anywhere from $50 to $100, depending on condition and depending on centering and things like that. But, and the reason for that uptick is because, when you were probably looking at those prices, last year, there wasn't any Marvel content going on. Black Widow was supposed to come out, but the theaters were shut down, so it never came out. So WandaVision was released mid-January on Disney Plus. So since that show was released, you've kind of seen the Marvel cards start to go up in price. And that's where I said some of the market trends are similar. Sort of like with the Marvel movies, there's like an in-season and an off-season. So what you could say is when you were looking up those prices, there was no Marvel Cinematic Universe content going on. So some people looked at that as, this is a time for me to buy, because when this stuff does come out, then people will probably start to buy it because it's going to be on their television screens and it's going to be, on the forefront. So that's just one example of one way that, you could see similar market trends. And to your point, is it going up and why? That's the reason why now you're starting to see some of that stuff move up in price.
And even the old professional wrestling cards I noticed too. One of my buddy, I dabble as a pro wrestling manager for years, so I have a bunch of buddies who collect the old cards, and even the old Hulk Hogan cards, Sergeant Slaughter cards. If you have these, they ungraded ones sell, but the ones that are graded from the 1980s, they're going for over $1,000 now. Some of them, it's really almost unbelievable that this is really a new trend for, sports cards have always kind of had a little bit of a market, but those older wrestling cards, they were fairly worthless a couple years ago, where you would be at the wrestling shows, guys would have old sealed boxes and be like, do you want them? Please, the $20, take the whole thing off my hands. Where now you're saying these things being graded, they really are upping the value of, seemingly worthless wrestling cardboard from just, 5 years ago.
Exactly, and one in particular, you said, the 85 tops Hulk Hogan has seen a lot of gains recently, and one reason I think that you're seeing that is because, like you said, the sports market in general is just, people are trying to find any trends that they possibly can. So other individuals were like, well, you know what, maybe I should look into some other sports, guys like Hulk Hogan, and Sergeant Slaughter and Andre the Giant, guys like that who are all-time greats, in the world of wrestling. So people are kind of seeing that, these should be going for more if some of these other all-time greats and main sports are going for a lot of money. And to your point with the grading, that can just 5 to even 10x, your investment. And that's something that we offer as a service at Sports Card Investor, since that's something now that is different from back in the junk wax in the 90s is this grading and this authentication side of it. So, and that's where you're seeing, with the sealed boxes, people want to buy the sealed boxes and open them because it's probably going to be in the most pristine condition that you're going to find it, especially those older ones, like an 85 tops wrestling, where you want to try to pull the Hulk Hogan because you want it in the best condition you can possibly find it. So you can send that in to get graded. And then, whatever the grade comes back, you'll have an idea of what that's going to cost.
Oh, and I can attest as somebody who bought those packs back in the day. All mine, if there are around somewhere, they're bent and destroyed, and I probably used them in the wrestling matches with the figures back in the day. So I'm assuming that the scarcity of a lot of those cards is probably very high, because if you weren't a collector and thinking about it back then, a lot of us were just kids, like the original baseball cards back in the 50s or whatever, where you just get them, this is worthless, okay, whatever, I'm planning to play with it, trade it with my friends. Now, the one thing that does scare me, so we were talking about everything's going up, boom, to the moon, all these sports cards. But not too long ago, we're talking, I guess the years would be the 90s. You'd probably have a better, recollection of exactly when the junk wax era kicked in. But there was a big depression in the sports card industry and the sports card values. Now, the scary thing about now is these prices are skyrocketing, where, there's cards, there's a lot of numbered cards that go, but a lot of cards are going for very expensive prices. They're, especially as a football guy, rookie cards, Justin Herbert's, Joe Burrow's, and it seems like they change with the flavor of the week, where, maybe back in February, the Joe Burrow was the most expensive rookie of the year, where now the Herbert's the most expensive rookie to get. Where, are there any pitfalls on the way? Now, is this a bubble that, as an expert, you think, you're preparing for a burst at some point? Or how do you view this? Is this, a different era for the industry, or a repeat of maybe, the problems we saw 20 years ago?
Well, I think there are some similarities, but there are some big differences. The similarities, I would say, is just the amount of people that are piling in. That is something that was similar to that era, where out of nowhere these people just came in, which then causes the prices to really raise. So I would say one similarity is that the amount of growth is causing these prices to get very, very, very high, or at least higher than they were, a few years ago. Now, one difference that I would say between then and now is the fact that, the analysis on the market now is so much more fast paced, and is just so much more tuned in and just stepped up to a completely other level. And that's one thing, when I came here to Sports Card Investor, that was one reason why I wanted to come here, because I knew that we were creating a data tool, essentially a modern version of a Beckett price guide, where you can, see prices constantly coming in and being able to study them on charts and things like that, and be able to track your collection and things like that. So none of that stuff was around in the 90s. You had to wait until you got that price guide in the mail to then look, and just the technology has really helped change the pace of the market. I see guys who are loading up on players who are an example would be a Carson Wentz situation, where his cards weren't going for very much throughout the year, but I had people telling me he's probably going to get traded. So I want to buy him now, because when he gets traded, it could go for more money. But there's also a scenario where you have a trade that happens overnight, and the card is 5x'd within an hour because that information just went out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and now people are seeing that news and going right to eBay or going right to, whatever marketplace so they can buy it. And that never was the case back then. News wasn't brought out like that where you knew if somebody was going to re-sign or sign or a guy was going to get traded or something of that nature. So just the fact that, the market is just on, a lot more fast paced than what it used to be is one of the bigger factors. That, and like we briefly touched on, grading, none of that was around in the 80s or 90s, which is why you're seeing companies like PSA and things like that are just backed up with orders because people see the value is there. So I want to get my card graded. And, that's why we decided to do this at Sports Card Investor, to help, those individuals who want that process to be done and to be done relatively smooth.
And to do a little hapless promotion for you here, I have to really compliment the Sports Card Investor, your YouTube, because that's what kind of got me into, hooked me up with just your whole company in general, was your YouTube videos. They were very analytical, and you could see that it wasn't just, you were using real numbers and real, and even one video I watched that was interesting, it was about the number of certain cards that were graded, which was information that, back in the day, getting the stupid Beckett magazine, you'd be like, oh, my card's worth 50 cents. And then 2 months later, the new one would come out and you'd be like, oh, it's for 60 cents now. Where with the products that are around today, you're like you're saying, overnight, you're making an investment, something big could happen. And, a card that might've been worth, even if it's like for instance, a Herbert. If you had a Herbert at the beginning of the season, you pulled it, or you're a Chargers fan, you got a bunch of Herberts, people liked him at the beginning of the season, but everyone coveted the Burrow. But as the season ended, now to get into the breaks, those Chargers are usually the highest priced team in the football breaks because people want those Herbert cards. So it's just really amazing how fast it changes. And really, it's one of those things where if you have your finger on the pulse, that's, other than a long-term hold, having your finger on the pulse could really be help your wallet a little bit too if you're collecting.
Definitely. And that's, one thing in this hobby is you keep the greats, you keep the all-time greats, and then you keep your finger on the pulse for some of the guys where you're not too sure. And in terms of pitfalls or things like that, what's one thing I would recommend is, if you're going to be putting in a lot of money, make sure it's for guys that are established, because so much can happen. And, you've seen guys in the past who, came out in their first year or two and have been really good, but then just didn't pan out, and those prices never got back to where they were those first couple years. So that's just one piece of advice that I'd like to give, new collectors coming in, is that if you're going to be, we like to call it prospecting, as in you're trying to, find those guys before they pop necessarily. It's just to make sure to tamper the expectations and don't necessarily, put too much into it, because you could not, the risk level is much higher compared to maybe getting a LeBron James or a Michael Jordan or somebody like that has more of a cultural impact outside of the game as well.
Yeah, like we're saying, if you're for example, you could say a quarterback. We have the big three from this year. We have the Burrow, the Tua, and the Herbert. But a year ago you had a guy, Easton Stick. There's all sorts of little quarterbacks that that you see people that do, like, and then not to delve into my own stuff, but I'm in like some Facebook groups and stuff. So you see there are collectors that say, I'm looking for this guy. This is who I want. If anyone wants to sell this guy, I'm your guy that's going to buy him. And a lot of times it is those guys who their values seem like they would be depressed because they didn't get a start, or they had one bad game and nobody wants him, or they drafted somebody who's supposed to be better, or a Carson Wentz situation where this guy's long for this team, but he could have a career renaissance. And in the Wentz's perspective, he had some great years. If he turns his career around, wins a Super Bowl, suddenly we look at Wentz as somebody totally different than he was a year ago, where we looked at him as a bum, especially people in Philly were like, this bum. But he could be a hero in Indianapolis. And
on the flip side of that now, people weren't looking at Jalen Hurts rookie cards when people
Hurts, that is a good example, because he was like, puh.
Exactly. People weren't getting I'd love to see the prices of those Eagle breaks before Hurts was given the job, or at least they made the switch to put him in the starting lineup. That's just an example of people were like, you know what? I think he's going to get an opportunity to start, so I'm going to buy his prices now, while he's not playing. And some people are even doing that with Jordan Love, waiting for Aaron Rodgers to be done in Green Bay. So that's just one example that, and from a football standpoint, that collectors like to do to be able to see if they can, get the price at a low before that news breaks, and then they're already ready to sell right then and there as soon as that news breaks.
Now, as a novice, I can understand the buy low really well, because I could say, all right, it's cheap, let me buy it as somebody I think is going to go up. Now, my big fear is, what about like the established? We do have established guys that their cards cost a lot of money these days, a lot of them. So as the card market's going up and people are buying up these Herberts and everyone's trying to get all their guys they like in basketball, we talked about RJ Barrett, but you got the LaMelos, you got the Zions, you have all those. Now, what is the, I don't want to say, I mean, is there, a trap for people that are going to buy these cards at an apex or at an artificially high price now, because we have a lot of people that are coming, and I say we as if I'm in the hobby, but there's a lot of people like me who are bumbling into sports card collecting. Are we going to see some of these cards artificially inflate just because there's such a demand right now, where at some point people are going to get all these cards, and is there going to be enough people that want to rebuy them back? Are we going to see some of these new cards? Are they, is there a peak basically? Are we seeing an apex on the way?
I do think that what's going to come down to some of it is the product knowledge. There's been a lot more products that have been getting released as the sports card hobby has been growing and growing. And what I tell folks is to make sure that you do your research, know which are the top, the top line products. So something like a Prism for basketball and football, or like we talked about, National Treasures, which is even a higher end product for football and basketball, or Select, or like those are just a few brands, like just the name off the top of my head, that I know that I'm confident that those are going to hold value because those are the most desired particular sets. Now, once you start to get into some of the newer sets and things like that, that's where, and in terms of, what's this going to look like in 15 years? What's this going to look like in 20 years? Those are, some of the high dollar purchases that I see where I'm like, I don't know if that's necessarily the best move, because this is a relatively new set and I'm not really too sure what the long-term value is going to be on a set like this, And we've even seen the opposite, where people didn't like a set before, and then years later, the set, finally caught up and people are like, oh, this is a good set. But just to answer your question, that's usually what I tell folks, to research the products and to know, okay, which is maybe the one that has the most sales. And that's something where, using like, a tool like ours, where you can see, wow, okay, this particular set, this card's selling so much more than this other one. So maybe I should get the one that's selling a lot. If as a collector, I want to be able to make sure I know I can sell the card when I put it up,
Yeah, so in essence, we're saying, let's say you got a guy. We'll use LaMelo as an example, because he's. I don't do a lot of basketball cards, but I'm assuming he's got to be a hot rookie card, LaMelo. So LaMelo cards, they're all going for a lot of money, but you could see between the different sets, the most, and I'm going to throw out some that hopefully they're really sets here. But you got the Mosaic, we were talking about National Treasures, Flawless. There's certain sets that, even though you could say, oh, I got this LaMelo rookie card. A LaMelo rookie card from another set could be worth exponentially more because it's more desired, and maybe there's in 10 years it has a nostalgia people. The people who collected it back then, kind of like the cards from back in our day have a nostalgia feel today for people. So it's not just there's many variables that it's not just, oh, I got this guy I like. It's you kind of got to get the guy you like in the brand of card is also going to be, or the series is also going to say how much this thing might be worth in the future, not just the player on it.
Exactly. And the next step with that, which we talked about a little bit, is what's the grade? Is it the 10? Is it the most, is it the most perfect one? Is it the PSA 10? Because if it is, then to your point, that just adds a whole nother level of scarcity to it. Just like you said, like you referenced one of our episodes on Sports Card Investor, we reference that as a population report. And that is where you look up to see, okay, that LaMelo ball in a 10, in a PSA 10, there's only 383 of them, but the 9 has 1,720. So the 10's obviously going to be going for more because it's the highest grade that you can get, and there's much less of them than the next grade under that. So without getting too analytical or too into it, that's just an example that adds another new layer that we didn't see, in the 90s or in the late 80s.
Well, and we're speaking of that video. That was actually one of the. I think it was. I think the video was about the Panini Select series, where while at this moment it wasn't very coveted, at least at the time the video came out, the sheer numbers of the graded cards were so small that you have to say, you know what, Select is a short print anyway, only a hobby box, like a high end collector type of series, and you're saying 20 years from now, if there's only, 10 PSA, 10 LeBrons out there, that's really going to up the value where you could say, maybe now a Prism LeBron's going for more than that, but in 10 years, there might be 10,000 of those graded at PSA 10 because there's just the scarcity isn't built into it as some of these other sets.
Exactly. And that's what, a few collectors are, that's what that's their thought, or that's their strategy. They're thinking, Prism might be popular right now, but Select, they're looking at the population reports, and their play is there's less of these that are graded in mint condition or in gem mint condition. So as people pile in, their play is that, people are going to start to look at these population reports more and start to maybe think, you know what, I want the rare one, not necessarily the one that's wanted the most or the one that's being bought and sold the most. And like you said, there's just so many different variables that go into it and different styles of collecting or investing. Like I said, I'm somebody in particular that when I put the card up for sale, I'd like for it to be sold. There's other people who don't necessarily need that liquidity, and they don't mind putting it at a certain price and letting it sit until they get the price that they want. But yeah, man, like, you sound like a savvy sports card investor, because that's
I fooled you, I'll tell you that much. I got a drawer full of Cole Kmets over here, so don't go compliment me too much. Well, we'll see. Who knows? Maybe he'll be the next Kelsey, and then he might be worth something. Well, one day, we'll see. But so I can wrap my head around the sports card. I can wrap my head around the guys. I can wrap my head around the different series. But I'm really having trouble wrapping my head around one thing that's going on in the sports card industry, and it's the blockchain sports cards. It's the NBA Top Shot, and I was introduced to it. I'm sure it predates this, but in the National Treasures and the high-end Panini, the regular cards, the physical cards, they would have the blockchain redemptions. And, if you get that in the case break, you're like, you'd be like, hey, well, I got a virtual card. What am I going to do with this thing? But, casually following the NBA Top Shot stuff, these cards are going for outrageous prices. Can you explain to me the popularity of this? Will these hold value? What the hell is going on with the virtual blockchain cards that makes them so valuable to people? I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it.
So yeah, man, this NBA Top Shot is really taking people by storm, probably since January up to all the way to this point. And it's fascinating. And I think one of the reasons why you're seeing so many people pile in is you're getting people from the crypto world, you're getting people from a daily fantasy sports, a sports betting world, and you're getting people in the card collecting world that have all been piling in because there's different reasons that they think that, this is valuable or that it's worth something. So I've heard from some people that from card collectors, that one reason why they like it is because of how smooth the marketplace is. I can open up a pack, I can pull out that moment, I can sell the moment, and the money is, I don't have to ship.
I don't have to go to the post office.
And then I don't have to get a message of the guy saying there's a small nick on this card. I'm going to send it back and give me my money back. So just in terms of the marketplace and how smooth it is and how quickly you can sell and trade. That's one thing from a card collecting standpoint that I've seen that individuals are like, this is interesting. But in terms of, the long term and things like that, I think what it's going to come down to is if the masses can wrap their heads around the fact that you can collect something like this that's intangible. One thing I've heard people say is, it's a YouTube clip, so like I could go look at the same clip on YouTube and I don't have, and I've heard people that are big Top Shot fans say, well, I can go print out that card and, on a piece of paper and cut it into into the shape of a card and put it into a sleeve and put it into a top loader. What's the difference? Which is an interesting, debate to have. But at the end of the day, I do think that both spaces, the sports card world and this, digital, these NFTs, I think that they both can live in harmony in terms of this whole sports collectible hobby. The difference is with the sports cards, the physical sports cards, I have an idea of the long-term value. This sort of stuff, and in terms of, all right, I'm going to I'm going to hold this moment for 5-10 years. That all remains to be seen. So that's where I'm keeping an eye on the Top Shot market. And as they go through the scalability and, continue to ramp up as these people continue to pile in. But it's definitely something that's interesting and something, that I see others in the industry are starting to piggyback off of, or at least trying to combine both the physical sports card world and the digital. So there's a company that's called Dibs that recently came out, and they have high dollar cards like LeBron James's Topps Chrome PSA 10 rookie, and they'll essentially chop it up into a bunch of different shares or NFTs, which is the same thing as a Top Shot moment. And then you can buy and sell those moments on their buy and sell those shares of that card. So that's just an example of also seeing where, we're trying to combine both, which I think that there is a future for, because there are individuals that don't like to deal with that aspect of, the guy just bought the card. Okay, I gotta get the pack. Okay, I gotta package the card.
Yeah, and then get my balls broken by him if it's not there on time. Then get the email. Then he's reporting me to eBay. How much fees does eBay want for this stupid thing? Did I even make any money off it now?
Exactly. So, and there's some individuals that don't mind that, and there's some individuals that do. So, I do think it's just going to turn to a situation where, it's an and situation. It's not an or. I hear a lot of people saying, it's going to be one or the other. And that's not the case. It's just whatever you prefer as a buyer and a seller. I have friends that they're like, I want the card in my hand. Like that's like the moment is something that's cool, but I like the card in my hand. And I have other people that are like, I'm happy I don't have a stack of these cards and I don't have my wife in my ear yelling at me that you have to get rid of some of this stuff, compared to, this NBA Top Shot where I have 110 of these cards or moments, and it's right, a click away. I don't have to have storage. I don't need to do any space. So it's interesting to see the rapid growth within this digital community. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to help the space in general.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, whether or not it ends up turning out to be a because just the prices, I mean, they're going for like 5 figures. Some of these Top Shot, I don't even my finger on the pulse. I just see people tweet stuff sometimes, but we're talking some of these digital cards, they're going for more than one-of-one cards that people are pulling out of packs these days, which really is mind-blowing to me. Because when I look back, you say, even when I was a kid, that Jordan rookie was coveted, through the late 80s, early 90s. Everyone was always coveting that Jordan rookie. And now, you have that PSA 10 graded Jordan rookie. It's cool to not that I have one, but it's cool to see people, they have them, they hold them. This is it. This was the nostalgia right here where maybe I'm old fashioned and kids today grew up in a digital age, but that's where my brain has trouble comprehending, in 20 years, what are we going to do? You got to download this app on your phone and be like, check out, this was worth $10,000. And it's a picture on your phone where, the tangible aspect I can wrap my head around more. But have you ripped any Top Shot packs yet? You got any stuff in the collection there?
I jumped into NBA Top Shot about the first week of January, so I would
which is
say,
pretty early, because I really, it seemed like mid-February the tweets started lighting up, and I was like, oh my god, I and now it's impossible. I see people, they're in line. There's thousands of people in line to rip these packs.
Yeah, so I did get in early January, and the growth has been absolutely insane. But it is something that I did not expect when I got in, that was going to get this much publicity, especially with the Players Association, a lot of these players that are getting into it and things like that. So from that standpoint, I did not expect, from when I first dabbled into there, to see what it was all about. I did not expect it to get to the forefront of some of the talk of the town per se. But and in terms of the prices now, I do worry that as more moments start to come out of the same people, that's where I'm going to be keeping an eye on to see, are these prices going to hold water for this long? Or, if they keep coming out with a lot of these different moments of the same guys, it's just going to, is it just going to get watered down essentially, because it's not as exclusive as it was maybe a month ago when there was only 3 moments of Kevin Durant that you could buy, and maybe, one of them is in his Nets jersey, his first Brooklyn jersey. But that's just a scenario of where I'm keeping an eye on it. But I also I think that they're working really hard to continue to elevate it, maybe do something to gamify the moments, like fantasy sports or something like that, or maybe even something along the lines of, if you have a moment, you can exchange it for an NBA ticket or to get into a game or something like that. So I think that's maybe a path that they're looking to go towards. And you can see maybe where some of this comes. But at the end of the day, only time is going to tell how sticky it's going to be. And if they do implement those things, how successful will it really be?
Okay, and that it will, because this is gonna sound pathetic, the story I'm gonna tell you here, because when I first saw the Top Shot, it reminded me. Now, did you play video games at all, or sports games? I was a big Madden guy. I don't know if you know the Madden Ultimate Team, where they still have it, but you rip the packs and you get the virtual guys to play in your team. And, we're talking probably a decade ago when it first came out. I was tooling around on there, and I did spend real money buying virtual packs of these stupid cards. And it was, at the time I knew I was throwing it away. It was like a hobby on a Sunday morning. I'd spend $10 on packs or whatever for my team. But I have such a trouble not drawing a correlation to my Ultimate Team cards, which are totally worthless now, where at the time I was like, oh, I got 99 Ronnie Lott. Oh, I got this Walter Payton. I took 2 cards, put them together, turned it into this rare card, and it had its own marketplace where you're doing virtual coins. But there's a lot of parallels where, are we going to see, could we get into, you don't know this at all because I'm throwing it on you, but could you see a market where suddenly these video game cards every year, maybe those are carrying over and the video game industry starts trying to piggyback the popularity of this Top Shot? Because I'll tell you, EA Sports, their Ultimate Team probably makes money. It's not making Top Shot money, I don't think, anymore. So they must have to say, hey, we started the virtual cards and now look at it. Somebody else is making all the loot.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that was one of my first questions, because I played Madden Ultimate Team and FIFA Ultimate Team. And I always thought, why don't they monetize this? And instead of it being tokens, you can actually buy and sell. Now, there might be certain legality issues or restrictions behind that, which is why they weren't able to do it. But when I, got into NBA Top Shot, I thought, I thought maybe something that EA Sports would hopefully do one day. Now, with their growth, like you said, with NBA Top Shot's growth, EA Sports probably had a meeting and said, maybe we should try to implement something like this into our games. But to your point, that would gamify them, so people would be willing to pay a particular price. So they could have that, 99 Barry Sanders or 93 Marshall Faulk from the 99 2000 Super Bowl season or something like that, because you can actually do something with it. Compared to right now with some of these NFTs and Top Shot, where you're like, okay, I have it. What can I do now?
Hey, let me keep playing it on my phone. I love that dunk.
I even see behind you here, you have some framed, photos behind you on the wall. I've even seen people say that they're going to try to do something like that, where they can digitally frame their moment and have their serial number on the frame or on the moment, so you can display it. So I just think everything is moving so fast that it is hard for people to wrap their brains around. But those are just some of the ideas that you can maybe see where some of this stuff goes. And I do think it is only a matter of time till you see one of these video games be able to implement something like that.
Oh, and that would be a curious move for them, because really the problem with the other virtual cards was there was only a finite time they were valuable, because the new game will come out the next year and you couldn't transfer your 99 Barry Sanders. You have to go get your next 99 Barry Sanders, where that kind of, and for me as somebody who did it for a year or two and was like, I got out of it because it was a Sunday morning hobby, that was part of the reason. The new year came out and I was like, do I really want to spend all this time going through all this monotony again of ripping the cards and doing all that, where with Top Shot, you're carrying them and you're saying, I have this not just till the next Top Shot thing comes out. I'm going to have this moment for a long time. So I could see how maybe there's a chance that these do retain some sort of value in the long run, even though my old-fashioned brain still wants to hold that Jordan PSA in the case, you know what I mean? And to me, that's where I feel there's value.
And exactly. And that's where, like, that company like Dibs I was telling you about, where somebody like me or you can't afford that PSA 10 Michael Jordan rookie card, But hey, if I could put in $100 or $200 and own that, and then see where the card goes, and then I can take my profit if I want. So that's something, like, for me in particular, that I know I'll enjoy, because I know I can't afford that PSA 10 Michael Jordan. But hey, if I could buy $500 of it or $200 of it or even $10 of it, it's still nice to know that, hey, I have a piece of this, of this historical card in this historical grade, So that's just something where people who might not be able to wrap their brains around the whole, the moment, or, it's just something I can play with on my phone, at least on a website like Dibs, you're at least, I have something tangible and this is actually backed by something.
And needless to say, there really, for at more than any time in history, there's more ways for people to get into card collecting, card gambling, whatever we want to call it. Like for me, it was more of a gambling, but for people with knowledge, it's card collecting, because you could buy your own packs, buy your own boxes. You could do the box breaks online where somebody else rips them. You could do it by team. You could do it by player. So whatever you're looking to collect, there's different ways and different entry price points for almost any type of sports card gambler, we're going to call them for the sake of the Cousin Vito show here, that where for as little as I want to just get, I want to get any, like for me, the Chicago Bears, $40 I'm in the case break, and who knows, I hit a card for $400 in the case break where I'll buy him for $50 at the craps table. That could be 2 minutes for me, unfortunately. So I've actually seen the card. There's been a little bit of a return on investment in the cards, and I want to thank you, Tyler, for coming on the show. Where I'm taking you long here. I know I only said I'm keeping you for a half hour. We're going a little long, so I want to respect your time. But before we got on here, you were saying you're a Jersey guy, and you kind of wet my whistle. I kind of wanted to pry and say, you ever go down to Atlantic City? I haven't been there since the pandemic started, but I miss that little old Atlantic City.
Yeah. I have spent some time down there. I lived about 2 hours away. So, and the funny thing is actually the National Sports Card Convention was supposed to be in, I think, Atlantic City this past year, but it got canceled because of the virus. But not only have I visited to, play a little casino, I'm a bit of a slots guy. I like opening cards. So to me, it's kind of similar, give me the bright lights and let it rip. And, let them do the rest, just like the packs, I like to open it, whatever they got, they let me do the rest. But yeah, man, I'm a big fan of the boardwalk. Like I said, Jersey Shore is always something that's going to be home for me. And like I said, I was looking forward to get back there in July for the National Card Show, but I believe they're going to reschedule it for 2022, I believe. So I'm hoping to be back before then, though, because I just get a lot of nostalgic memories of mom and dad taking me to Atlantic City.
Oh, me too. I'm almost shed a tear here. But before I let you go, Tyler, how can everyone get a hold of you? Do you have a Twitter? Is there a website? What's the best way to not only get a hold of you, but get involved with with Sports Card Investor? Because to me, your YouTube videos are some of the best and most informative that I watch. And I really feel like any novice that wants to get into this and start, investing or gambling on sports cards, the background that you guys give on your YouTube's great, but where else can they get a hold of you and, pester you for advice or find some stuff out from you?
Yeah, well, what I'll first say is for the novices, and I know you told me you have a box of cards somewhere in your house that might be,
sitting in this drawer. Don't me go cry over it. All my Colt Comets. Who knows? We'll see. I don't want
not in the best. They might not be in the best condition, as you said. But if you're somebody that is getting back into it, or somebody that has that box of cards, and you don't know what the prices are, you can download our Sports Card Investor app, and you can look up a lot of these cards just by typing in the player's name. And that's just something, if you're starting out, that's something you can do. But if you want to look for me or look for us at Sports Card Investor, you can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at tboltz9, TBOLTZ9, and I believe 09 for Instagram, and then at Sports Card Investor for Instagram, and at Sports Card INV on Twitter. So those are the places that you can find me, and you can find Sports Card Investor. And like you said about our YouTube show, you can find us on YouTube. We have about 3 to 4 weekly episodes with a lot of that good content. But like I said, I highly recommend you download the Sports Card Investor app if you guys are trying to get back into it, or have cards sitting around. You're like, I have no idea what this stuff's worth, and I have no idea how to go about it.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, and you get the app, you have the up to the minute basically charting of what these cards are worth, what they're going for on eBay. So you really can't beat that, can you? I mean, especially the way the word is today. You go to eBay, you could go to the sold ones, but you have a nice comprehensive place where it has everything on there, and you can see the market trends. Because that's the big thing, really, is not only is it going up, but has it gone down, and is it going up? Is it up but kind of going down? You want to be on the right end of those curves, just like a stock market where, a novice, just like in the stock market, you get it and say, let me go buy this thing, and you may never make any money on it because you bought it the wrong time.
Exactly. And the good thing with the SCI app is that it gives you 7 to 30 days worth of data. So you can have an idea of what was this going for a month ago when the guy was playing, and now it's the off season, And if that's something that's not enough for you, we have a data tool that goes much more in depth. We have some of years worth of data and things where you can put your card collection into our data tool, and the prices update for you every morning. So you don't have to research anything, and the price is right there to see how much your card's going for. But I mean, that's just one of the many things that we do here at Sports Card Investors. So I really appreciate you bringing me on, man.
Oh, thank you, Tyler, for all your time, and may all your pack ribbon be prosperous.
Oh, it's same with you, my friend.
I will talk to you soon. Well. All right, Robin, we are back. That was Tyler the Hammer Holzhammer. Hopefully you learned a little bit about sports cards there. I mean, sports cards, not only are they crazy, but these virtual sports cards that people are buying for thousands of dollars, I'll never wrap my head around that one, I don't think.
Well, yeah, I learned something. I learned that I should have never given away my cards like I did, 20 years ago. So that's a lesson learned.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, the way it is today, who knows that these things might keep going up, or you might see the whole whole hobby bubble burst like a lot of other things that happen around this world.
Yeah. Yep.
But before we get out of here, Robin, I got to talk about some casino return trips here. So we got Foxwoods with a quadruple point stake coming up. I believe it's Friday the 26th. So I'm going to be up there Thursday and Friday. The wife's coming up Friday. We're bringing the baby up. My mother's coming up. We're having a grand old time at Foxwoods, all celebrating. My mother's vaccinated. Amanda's pretty close to vaccinated, but we're going to still keep our distance and maintain our safe space here. But I'm heading back up, and I just can't wait.
Well, I think also that same day is the status mayhem frenzy there at the Mohegan Sun. And the same day.
Oh man, now we're getting real. Now we're getting real tricky. I've been noticing, the casinos are suffering, but I've been getting comp rooms, and at times I normally don't really get the comp rooms at Mohegan Sun and a couple of other than Fox's neighboring casinos. It looks like they're trying to say, all right, we're rolling things back. Everyone get up here again. We miss you, which is nice. It's good to feel missed.
Yeah, well, it's I couldn't believe in one of my posts I mentioned how I got a suite comped. I mean, that's the first time at Mohegan Sun, that they have enough rooms, but I mean, not like Foxwoods. And so I never ever got never had a suite at Mohegan Sun. So yeah, they're looking to get people there in the packet.
A suite, Robin. You must be playing some serious video poker there to get the suite.
Well, actually, it was some serious Pygow. I played Pygow on a triple status points day, and I played for I think 4.5 hours. I was so tired that the nice ladies at the table were telling me, "Go take a nap. We'll hold your chair. Go take a nap." So, but yeah, I played big. Like like my resolution was, I'm gonna play big but play less often, and it's really working for me.
And that's really been my New Year's resolution here. Actually, Robin, I'm sitting here. I got the two screens going. I got us on one screen. I got this poker tournament with You Can Bet on That going on the other one here. I'm at 4,076 chips here. Second highest chip leader at the table. We'll see if I can keep this going. Hopefully next week, I'll have so many play chips I won't know what to freaking do with them all.
That's great. Well, keep us posted.
I will. I was telling my wife about, we're going back. Amanda's very excited, too, to go back. And I said, I just want to have one of those casino trips where I play craps till my feet hurt, then go play Pygow till my ass hurts. That's my two favorite things is, let me, I'm getting tired. Let me go sit down from all this craps. I just can't stop winning. Then I go to the Pygow, and I'm playing till my ass hurts and my eyes are burning, and I leave up. I don't think there's anything better than that.
Nope. And I have to tell you, though, be prepared for a lot of people playing Pygow, and it's really tough to get a seat. They open up 2 tables at Mohegan Sun, at Foxwoods at what was it, noontime, and then they open up maybe a couple others. So
I'll be in line. That was I'm happy you had the noon time, because I was actually thinking of fishing around when I got there, because I love the Pygow tables in off the Pequot floor there. I was thinking of being one of those guys that gets there before they open. I'm sure it's going to be $25 or $50 a hand, but and just getting down, hunkering down, and trying to get some 4 times tier credit playing at the pie gow table for a little bit. Because I could play craps all night, I guess, but getting that pie gow seat, nothing's better than that.
Yeah, that's my favorite place, and they've got Fred, who's a pit boss there. Nicest guy, man, really nicest guy. So I'm looking forward to getting back to Foxwoods and playing some pie gow.
Yeah, I'm feeling parched without all that Fiji water I get to drink. Fiji must be like, we got all this extra water now. What are we gonna do? Because I know that I was drinking half the Fiji fountain probably every time I was at the pie gow table.
You might as well just buy some stock in Fiji and just let it go that way.
Oh, yeah, because I missed that. So I'm heading up on the 25th, 26th, Robin. I'm going to be up there. I don't know what I'm trying not to play too much on the 25th because I want my big bankroll to be for the next day. But I'm figuring, the 4 times points starts at 6 in the morning. You get the comp group on the Thursday. Why would I drive up at 5 a.m. when I could just sleep there and, set my alarm and wake up like a little refreshed bunny and hop on down to the floor at 6?
Exactly. And you could play a little bit of craps, not a big deal that night. Not use your card, and no one knows you're there, but you're enjoying the game. And then let your big play the following day with your card, and boom, take advantage of that 4 times points.
That was what I was thinking of doing. I actually have a little interesting room reservation up there at Foxwoods. They officially changed their booking system on their website, which is never good for people like us, Robin. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Anything where the computer's doing more work than an actual person is never good. So basically, I'm sure you remember Foxwoods has did the rooms like a lot of other casinos where you'd get an email, you get these room rates, and you'd have like a promo code for the free rooms. And really how it seemed like it'd work is they probably had a certain allotment of the free rooms they give to all the people, and then as you book them up, then the comp rooms disappear. But now they have much like the Mohegan Sun, the Flex calendar, where you go in and you might go in one day and a room's free, and the next day it's $80, and 2 days later the next night's free. So it's a constantly changing algorithm, it seems like. And I actually had to call the host because I was having some issues getting the room rates that were being advertised on the comp calendar, and he assured me even he booked the rooms and the rates still weren't right in my itinerary, and he assured me that no, these are the rates that you have. He doesn't know what this computer's telling me right at the moment. So they're working out the kinks there. If you're having trouble booking at Foxwoods, you might want to call, because I was getting charged for one of my comp rooms, and the second night the rate was higher than it was on the booking agent.
Well, I'm going to have to check that out because I do have some rooms waiting for me at Foxwoods, and I love the Grand Pequot. I loved after they renovated it a few years ago, and I think it's a great place.
Well, and the rooms are so beautiful too with the renovation, and I like the back elevators. I wish more hotels, casinos had the back elevator situation where you're at the Pequot, you could come down kind of by the video poker bar, you could come down in the back of the high limit room. There's a couple little side elevators if you don't want to go down the grandiose main elevators and come out where everyone else is.
Yeah, see, and I didn't know about that until our friend Joe. Hey, shout out to Joe Frieda. So Joe told me all about that. You don't even have to walk through the crowd of people. You just go the back way, and boom, there you are at the pie gow table.
Which there's really nothing better than that. Especially when you're done playing pie gow, you could squirt right up to the room, whoop, right up the back elevator. Nobody says anything. And forget about social distancing. There's barely anyone ever in the elevators.
That's awesome.
You can't beat that. So we have that trip coming up, but I believe, Robin, I might be doing a Foxwoods Mohegan Sun run on May 22nd or 23rd is where I'm at here. So
okay.
I want you and I want anyone who wants to come hang out. We want to pencil that one in because me and Cousin Mikey might be heading up to Foxwoods, might be heading up to Mohegan. We're still working it out. Find me on Twitter at Vito's Casino because I'd love to go up and I'll be my antibodies will be running around like crazy by May. So I'll be ready to play some craps and say hello to some people, I think.
Oh, that sounds good. Count me in. I'll just let me know when the date is, and we'll all start booking our rooms.
All right, perfect, Robin. Well, I want to thank you very much for taking some time out on this beautiful selection Sunday. I'm down to 3,600 chips in this poker tournament, by the way. But we'll see. It's a long haul. There's 159 people left in this tournament. I'm 47 and 159, so I'll take that as a victory for the short term. Oh. I may have lost you, Robin.
Oh no, you got. I thought you were gonna.
I was like, hey, I thought maybe I hit the space bar and launched it, but here we go.
No. I thought you were wrapping things up this way.
Thanks for the hint. All right. Well, I don't know what it is, Robin. I don't know if it's these beautiful New England spring days we've been having. I don't know if it's the J&J shot running through my bloodstream. I don't know if it's the Foxwoods free rooms, the Mohegan free rooms. I don't know if it's the dice in Massachusetts. I don't know if it's this you can bet on that free poker tournament on it. But I got a funny feeling that between me, you, and all the people out there, all the sports card collectors, all the Five players, all the podcasters, that together we're going to make luck